Hey, it's Joe at the Reds Hunting Channel. You also see me at the Reds Fly Shop Fishing Channel, but as we've said on these videos before, we're a bunch of backcountry hunting and chukar hunting fanatics here at Reds. And one thing we hate is watching people review boots of a brand new pair of boots, and you know darn good and well, whoever's reviewing the boot has literally never even worn it before. So our boot reviews are of dirty boots. If you want to see pictures of clean boots, you can go to our website and shop for boots on our website. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of some compare and contrast on recent expeditions of the Summit II and the Lapponia III, just know we have a Crispi boot fit guarantee. You can just go to our website. All the boots have the boot fit guarantee on there. I won't bore you with the details, but you can get free returns. It's actually 98 cents. If a boot doesn't fit and you try it on, it's free return to ship it back. We're a super place to shop for Crispi boots. So let's just dive into it. So I've been running off and on the Lapponia III and the Summit II, and I will go back in time a little bit and talk about the original Summit boot, because the Summit II, I didn't jump all over it when I was shopping for boots last time. And I kind of rethought it a little bit. So I had the original Summits, which at this point, oh my God, I can't tell you how many adventures these things have been on. And they never really emerged as like my favorite boot, but I'll tell you, I ran through a set of altitudes, which I loved the fit and the performance of the altitude, but the thing I didn't like about the altitude, it just did not wear as good. And I since handed these off to my older son, and he continued to wear the living crap out of these things. And I watched them continue to hold up incredibly well with zero stitching removal, zero failure. They've been through a couple of sets of laces. The only thing literally is the toe rand is coming off a little bit, but when you look at it, the rubber is actually just, they've been worn so much, they're actually just worn through. So I was super impressed, and I've been wearing these Lapponias, and they're a very flexible and soft boot, and I wanted another boot to test side by side, one because we sell them, but two because I wanted a more rigid boot for elk hunting. And so I grabbed a pair of these, and I've actually done a couple of hikes where I've worn one boot on each foot just to get a really good comparison between the two. And I've got some thoughts. If you're looking for kind of a high performance mountain boot and you're debating between the Lapponia III and that Summit II, I've got some advice for you. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna show you on weight. So these are size 11s. Now the Crispi website doesn't have an apples to apples weight comparison. They have a size 9 on one of their boots for the weight and then a size 10. But let's go ahead and look at this. So this is a Lapponia. There's no insole inside right now. I run a set of super feet, but we're gonna take those out just to show you what it is without an insole. We're at 1.67 ounces on the right Lapponia, and then we'll grab the Summit and we'll just talk about weight. They're actually quite similar in weight. And we're at 1.79. So just under 3 ounces difference between the boot. It's very hard to tell just picking them up. The Lapponia III, this newer version, has the same exact sole, and I think they call that their mega grip. So the boots themselves have the same lug pattern and the same sole on them. They both have a pretty good lace to toe design for navigating steep country. Primary differences, and it's much more apparent after you've owned these and you put a lot of miles on them, is the rigidness. This boot, even compared to this older one when I broke that one in, is a very well fortified boot. And I don't mean just the flex rating. It's a flex rating of 3, but the boot itself and kind of I won't use the term last because that's the shape of the boot, but the boot itself holds its position much more rigidly and much stronger than that Lapponia boot does. This is a more well-fortified boot. It's a strong boot for how light it is. The downside of that is the break-in time on the Summit II was much greater than the Lapponia. The Lapponia being all leather, you would think was going to be a greater break-in time. I've had some nightmarish experiences trying to break in leather boots. The Lapponia break-in time was much, much quicker. This is going to take a little bit more time to break in, just because the boot itself is built on a much more substantial platform, just the way that boot holds its shape for steep side hilling and things like that. So much stiffer. I honestly haven't noticed a lot of breathability difference. Part of the reason I did want to pick up the Summit as well is because I wanted to see if this material, I think it's a PU-TEC material right here that's a synthetic material. I was hoping it would be a little bit more breathable, but I haven't noticed a tremendous amount of breathability difference in the Summits being a little bit more synthetic than Lapponia's. My feet got equally sweaty in both of them. I do think this one would probably dry faster. We hunt the Cascades a lot, and our boots will get saturated from the top down. I do feel like the Summit II would and has dried faster if I just take my boots off for 20 minutes on a glassing point or take a break. This one does seem to dry out just a bit quicker than the Lapponia. After, you know, a ton of wear on both the boots, this boot is much cozier. If I'm gonna go hike 10 or 15 miles and have a light pack, that Lapponia is gonna get the nod. I don't really notice the weight difference, but this leather and that sole is so much more flexible and softer. It just moves very light, very little resistance with you. The leather has shrunk up, and I originally, I think on an older review, I said I wished I'd bought a 10.5, and I'm classically an 11 in everything, no matter what. And I got the 11s. At first, I thought it felt a little big, but when this boot gets wet and dry, the nice thing about leather is it does shrink in on you like so. So that's more of like my light fast packer. I did go on a pack out the other day. My son's shot pretty good sized black bear in the mountains last week, and when I went up and I knew I was going to have to haul a pretty heavy load, the boot that I chose for weight bearing adventures is the Summit II. And to me, that's one of the fundamental differences, is just the rigidness of the boot this way, so that when I am side hilling, that I'm not getting a lot of foot slop and pitch that's going to steal my energy and rob my energy. And the rigidness of that boot, torsionally speaking, for side hilling under a load, to me is definitely superior and more comfortable than the Lapponia. So bivvy hunting for elk, you know, I'm underweight, I might have, you know, 32-pound pack plus weapon plus optics. I'm probably looking at 40 pounds, 43, you know, low 40s with a wet pack, meaning I'm full of water. I'm going to choose the Summit II, just because the rigidness, there is quite a substantial difference between the two. So both, I've got positive things to say about both. I think in a year, you know, after a full year's use out of both of the boots, I think I'll have more information for you. I'm a couple of months into each one, and I have a lot of miles on both boots, but in conclusion, this is going to require more break-in time than you think. And during break-in, shoot, I didn't grab the socks. Oh, I was going to show you the socks I've been running, but yeah, Dallas here, he'll grab the socks. I think this is worth a benching, but one reason, like, you know, we're all looking for that perfect boot that does everything all the time and it gives you magical feet in the mountains and you just float along for days at a time. Crispi boots are pretty darn good, but there's always going to be a trade-off. If you go with a synthetic boot, there's going to be trade-offs versus a leather, because leather tends to stretch and form and kind of fit you like a glove over time. But both boots have been great, but there's always trade-offs, and one of them is going to be breathability. Synthetic boots are typically going to breathe better, although I have not experienced that so much in this boot. It's not like it's a huge advantage over the Lapponia. It definitely would be a big advantage over like a Nevada or like the leather Brickstyle, which is going to be a 2.6 millimeter leather versus the 2 millimeter on the Lapponia. So you will notice a big difference there in the heavier boots. But what I found was wearing the thicker sock helped immensely with moisture management. What was happening is I was wearing these San Juans quite a bit, and on these hot, you know, June, July, and August, and early September scouting days and early season hunting, you know, I would sweat, and this thinner sock would essentially get saturated at some point, and would not get the moisture actually off my skin. I started wearing these thicker socks even in the heat, and I didn't notice really that I was overheating, and my feet wound up staying quite a bit drier. And the break-in time with the Summit II having that really nice rigid Flex 3 sole, and I've had Brickstell boots too, and I actually feel like the Summit II is more like a 3.5 flex rating. I mean, it's a pretty stiff sole, but just breaking in that boot under that thick sole or that rigid sole, the thicker sock protected my feet from hot spots significantly better, especially under sweaty feet conditions, than did the thinner sock or a thinner sock. I don't care whether they're Crispis or whatever the heck you buy. But I just found that once I switched to the thicker sock during break-in especially, it had a lot of comfort to that Summit II boot. So anyway, that's my takeaway. You're looking at genuine boot reviews after being worn. You want to go look at boot reviews of brand new boots, go find another channel. You want to look at some dirty ass Crispi boots that have actually been used, you came to the right place.